This episode began and ended in a way that I was not expecting from a show like this. Yeah, pretty dark. And welcome to my Safe Gayven, everybody. Thank you guys so much for clicking on another video and joining me here on the Black Gay Comic Geek channel. If this is your first time checking out one of my videos, let me introduce myself. My name is Michael. I call myself the Black Gay Comic Geek. And I always say the things that I love to talk about here on the channel has blood, sex, gore, and magic, or any variation of the four. So mostly I like to talk about fantasy, sci-fi, comic books, and superheroes. But of course, I like to talk about action movies, horror movies, and sometimes regular movies and shows. And of course, I like to talk about black representation and queer representation. So if that's something that you're interested in, if you enjoy the reviews, if you enjoy the channel, if you enjoy the thoughts and everything like that, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, help me to continue to grow the channel. Check out the other videos on my channel, especially for this particular series, because this is going to be episode 5 of Boots. So hopefully support your boy, support the channel by watching episodes 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then once I do 6, 7, and 8, do me that favor, check all of those reviews out. You can also do me a favor, hitting that like button. It'll help with the YouTube algorithm, getting this video out there, getting my channel out there. Some more eyes can see the channel, can subscribe, and help me grow. So like I said, guys, we are here to continue the reviews of talking about Boots. We are talking about episode 5 this time. And again, spoilers for every single episode of Boots. This episode is called Bullseye. And before we get into it, the synopsis of this episode is: while the recruits undergo competitive rifle training, an unexpected tragedy hits the platoon. And meanwhile, the NCIS investigation into Sergeant Sullivan begins to intensify. And so yeah, before I get into like the main crux of the episode, this is kind of what I was mentioning in the earlier episodes, that we eventually find out that Barbara Cope, Cameron Cope's mother, really is trash. She's a terrible person. She's a narcissist. She has no business being anyone's mother, let alone allowed to be in polite society. Because this is a short part of the episode, so I want to get this part out the way. But we find out that in order to sell some makeup, she's been lying to an entire group of grieving mothers. She's been taking advantage of them just to like let them think that her son died in active military combat, died while in the Marines, just so she can ingratiate herself to them, to convince them to buy some makeup, to basically increase her profits and her revenue while taking advantage of the rest of these grieving mothers who actually did experience the deaths of their child, who's actually going through and grieving the loss of their child. And while yes, to be fair to her to a certain extent, but I'm not going to give her that much grace, she didn't do it intentionally. Like when she said, "I lost my son," it was one of the mothers, I don't remember her name, but she mistook it as her saying that her son is no longer with us. Her son died in combat, but she could have easily corrected them, but she saw an opportunity and capitalized on it. And just like Cameron alluded in the beginning of the episode, that's been her entire life. That's why they've been moving from city to city ever since he was like a child, because somebody mistook him for a military brat. Because like you think about a military brat, they're constantly moving, they're constantly on the go. But it's like, no, because she's always lying and she always has a scheme happening. That's why they're constantly moving cities and moving states. And we get to see why. This is just another example of that. And then later on in the episode, Cameron gave another example of how she like convinced the bank that like she had a disabled son, made him wear those braces on his legs to convince the bank to give them or could give her a bank loan. And so yeah, at the end of the day, she's terrible. And she knew she was about to get caught, because when Ray's mother showed up, if it wasn't for that other mother coming to greet her at the door, she was going to try to push her away, because she knew that the moment that Ray's mother would have came in that house, she would have gotten caught, because obviously Ray, she knows that Cameron is still alive because Ray and Cameron are best friends. And so clearly Ray and his mother were corresponding with each other. But the fact that when Cameron found out about it, he wasn't even surprised, that tells you everything that you need to know about Barbara Cope. But with that said, you know who else got a sudden surprise? Surprise, 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 surprise! Sergeant Sullivan with the investigation into NCIS. He thought he kind of escaped it with him leaving Guam and going to where this boot camp is. I don't even know actually like where this boot camp even takes place. Like, I don't know if I missed it and they said it, because I know Cameron's from Louisiana, but I don't know where this boot camp takes place. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Wherever this boot camp takes place, he thought he could escape everything that's going on with NCIS. And so we see he signed the re-enlistment papers with Captain Fajardo, whatever her name is. But NCIS found him out because we finally get to see who Sergeant Sullivan's boyfriend is, where we saw a picture of Major Wilkinson, who's also being investigated for what they say lewd conduct and sodomy. And kudos to Captain Fajardo. I'm pretty sure she suspected and she knew, but based on her reaction, she doesn't care. She's still on his side because she's like, look, if this comes back around, we'll deal with it. So good on her. She's an ally, but clearly she knows the moment she said, can you take off your shirt? She didn't say shirt. She just said blouse. I was like, blouse, was that a homophobic thing? Because like, or is it actually called that? But anyway, the moment she said, can you take off your shirt? She instantly knew because she saw the tattoo. The tattoo is what gave him away. If he didn't have that tattoo, he could have at least somewhat denied it. He could have continued to deny it. He would have had plausible deniability. But the fact that clearly, if she had him take off that shirt, that means he has, and we saw the flashback of them getting they clearly have the matching tattoos. So that right there, granted, that's not a whole lot of evidence, but it's compelling enough to be able to like discharge him more or less. Cause it's not like being that it's the military that judges themselves. They probably don't need that much evidence. But I mean, the matching tattoos, it's a big giveaway. So that's going to cause a problem for him in later episodes. But we're only talking about episode 5. So of course he denied being a homosexual, which you have to do if he wants to, like he literally just signed his re-enlistment papers. And he clearly knows being gay is illegal currently in this 1990s time in the military. He could be discharged. It was smart for him to say no if he wanted to keep his job and his career. But yeah, it's not looking good for Sergeant Sullivan. But with that said, after episode 5, we do fully see that shift happening between Sergeant Sullivan and Cameron Cope, where he went from being his tormentor to his mentor. Like now, at every moment that he interacts with Cameron, he helps him, he engages with him, he encourages him, he uplifts him. Like even when Cameron was struggling with the shooting range, because Sergeant Sullivan saw that little brief argument that he had with Ray, and he was just like, you're distracted, I get it. But he gave him words of encouragement, and Cameron hit a bullseye. But if this was old Sullivan, he would have been yelling at him, calling him all types of F words and all this other stuff. But now he's, encouraging the little boy, or not the little boy, because Cameron's still somewhat of an adult, but the much younger version that he sees in him. So like he sees himself and Cameron, especially like this queer kid trying to join the military. So obviously he didn't want Cameron to have to go through everything that he went through and is currently going through in the military. That's why, and if you watch interviews with Max Parker, he said, especially even though we're not done with the episode, we're at this point, so I feel like it's good to bring up, but he said that he originally was tormenting Cameron because he wanted to get Cameron to quit. He didn't want Cameron to have to go through all the things that he went through in the military with like homophobia and just the idea of it being illegal to be gay in the military. He wanted better for Cameron, but since Cameron kept proving to himself, proving to himself, Cameron, and proving to Sullivan that he had what it took to be there, that's why he decided to go from being his tormentor to his mentor. Because it's like, okay, if he's gonna still stay here, I'm gonna prepare him for what's to eventually come. And so with that said, in terms of like preparation and everything like that, it is rifle week. What they said, the best 2 weeks of their lives, where they get to actually shoot live rounds with an M16. And just this whole gun culture in America, it's so sad how we are supposedly number one, the best country in the world, but it's like really the only thing we're really number one in is the things we shouldn't want to be number one is. The number of prisons, the amount of guns that we have in this country, gun deaths, all of that stuff. So like even with the military, the way they were talking about guns and how it's like you get the power of God and baptism and all this other bullshit. It's like, all right, calm down. But with that said, friendly competition, the person that wins the rifle contest, that gets the most points, that shoots the most bullseyes, gets to get a phone call home. And so this episode focused a lot on Ochoa. And when I first saw this episode, because like I mentioned in episode 1, I saw this show like a month ago for I got an early screening of it, but then I just never got a chance to like do a non-spoiler review. But I'm actually glad I'm kind of doing it this way, because I feel like after what the Pentagon said about this show, that's when this show really started to catch on. And so with that said, because Ochoa has been always talking about his wife, Gloria, since the first episode, he wants to be able to call home. He wants to be able to call his wife. But he didn't expect he would be able to win this rifle challenge because he's never shot a gun before. And so he's trying to like bargain and negotiate with all the other recruits and be like, look, if you win this rifle challenge, I'll do your fire watch for a week. I'll do whatever you want. Just let me be able to call my wife. And what I was saying is like, when I first saw this episode, I didn't know that it was going to be him that ends up needing the hospital and what ends up happening to him by the end of the episode. I didn't think it was going to be him, but going back and rewatching, so I like have my memory fresh to be able to talk about these episodes, I was just like, damn, it's kind of obvious, especially with as much television, as many shows that I watch. I feel stupid that I didn't realize it was him, because I'm just like, they kind of led with it, especially like the way this episode opened, and then they did the flashback, and then learning that this episode was really about him. He had the main narration throughout this entire episode. That right there should have told me, oh, he's the one that kicks the bucket by the end. But I didn't realize it. I was surprised when he ended up dying by the end of the episode. Again, spoilers. But yeah, he clearly has a medical issue that he didn't disclose or whatever, because we even see like when there's a moment where Cameron goes to the bathroom and we see Ochoa in the bathroom, like holding his neck. He's crying. He's in some type of pain. Maybe he has sickle cell. I don't know. He has something that caused him to basically die when he did all that extra, because he wasn't even like working out that long, but his heart gave out more or less. And he even said it happens more times than not. Like it happens every so often. He just needs to wait for it to go away. So then it also makes me wonder, that time that Santos caught him crying, was that him having that type of flare up? Maybe. Don't know. But what we do know is it turns out that even though it was his first time shooting, he's kind of a shooting prodigy. He's a savant, as Sergeant Howard said of him. Like, he basically has that sharpshooter eye. And so because of that, yeah, he's the one that won the sharpshooter and the rifle challenge. And it's like, he was just so happy. And I know I'm skipping around a lot, but it's fine. But he was just so happy being able to call his wife Gloria, and fucking Gloria. Gloria, 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 Gloria. And basically, when the way like he was explaining his wife, it's like, oh, she doesn't really sound like a good person. Because he mentioned that it wasn't until he said he was going to join the Marines that she actually finally said yes to marrying him. He's more sensitive. He's more in touch with his more feminine side and his emotions. And so whenever he would get like that, because he even mentioned like, oh, am I being a baby? Because that's what Gloria would say. She's not a good person. And clearly she's not a good person, because while her fiance is out 13 weeks in boot camp, she's sleeping with some other nigga. And I get why he kind of crashed out, because even Sergeant Howard, even though he made the joke that she was getting dicked down by somebody else, it was true. And that's what caused him to flip his shit. And even though Howard didn't like mean anything by that joke, this is just an example of why you need to say like, you can't always make certain jokes or make certain references with certain people, or a certain, like, you always got to watch what you say, because you never know what a particular person is going through. Because they've made jokes like that with him before, but it was before, you know, he didn't actually know, but he didn't actually know then, so it didn't bother him as much, and he didn't believe she would do something like that. But then it turned out that was the case. Or even just life in general, like even like me being a content creator and some of the comments that I deal with and things like that, people are just like, oh, well, you decided to put yourself out there, so you need to just suck it up. It's like, no. You don't know what's going on in my personal life. You don't know how your comments are affecting me. And also, just because I'm making videos doesn't mean I'm putting myself out there for you to be ignorant. Like, it's one thing to be like, hey, Michael, I like this video, but maybe you should try this. You offer constructive criticism. But then it'll be another thing to be like, oh, you're gay, you're a F word, or this is stupid, or, you know, things like that. And it's like, well, you put yourself out there, so you should accept it. No, I shouldn't. But with that said, speaking of someone that does need to take it, everything that's happening with Nash right now is 100% his fault. Like, the moment that he was like doing this pity party with Sergeant McKinnon, where he's just like, I don't want to be here. My parents don't want me to be here. The other recruits don't want me to be here. Like, woe is me. Cry me a motherfucking river. Like, everything that you're you're going through is your fault. You joined the Marines without telling your parents, and you knew your parents wouldn't have a good reaction to you joining the Marines. So why are you surprised that your mother gave you said what a waste? Obviously, it still kind of hurts when your parents say something like that, but you weren't surprised. The Marines and your fellow recruits not wanting to talk to you right now is completely your fault because of all that trash that you wrote in your diary that you thought you wouldn't get found out about. And then for him to be like, oh, I don't want to be here. No, you don't want to be here because you're no longer having a good time. You're no longer seen as the top dog. People aren't looking up to you. And so now your feelings are hurt. Now that's why you don't want to be here. But all of that is 100% your fault, because remember when he spoke to Cameron earlier in the episode, he mentioned that he wanted to be a Marine because he has ambitions to be president, and so he knows that and part of being president, they're going to question if you have military service. And so that's why he made the choice to join the Marines. And so nobody can question his patriotism and everything like that. So then when he does run to be president, he has a better shot at it because of what happened with Jesse Jackson. So yes, you actually do want to be here. It's just right now you're not having a good time because you got caught. And in many ways, you and Slovacek are kind of two sides to the same coin. You chastise and look down on Slovacek for being like cocky. What do you call him? Big dick, no balls. But you're basically the same person. And that's what McKinnon, and that's why McKinnon put the two of them together to try to show him that they're basically the same person. Because why did he get demoted as squad leader? Because he tried to run ahead of everybody to try to say, oh, I'm leading by example. It's like, no, you wanted to swing your dick around just like Slovacek is swinging his dick around. You want to prove you're so much smarter than everybody because you're in college, you're in Howard. But that's not what a leader is supposed to do. And even McKinnon kind of said, like, this is what your problem is. Because when he put the two of them together, he's like, why should I be responsible for what's going on with him? That's literally what you're in the Marines for. You are responsible for your fellow man, especially if you're off to war. You think the war is just going to be you by yourself? It's you and your platoon. So yes, you are responsible for your fellow man, your fellow brother, your fellow squad mate, your fellow bunk mate. That's what you don't understand. So all this talk about you criticizing everybody in your platoon, well, guess what? You are only as strong as your weakest member. You made the choice to come here. So instead of criticizing everybody else, how about look at everybody else's weakness and maybe help them out instead of thinking that you're better than everybody else. Sorry, I just went on like this whole thing, like, because he pisses me off. But kudos to the actor. Dominic Goodman, first of all, he's fine, but he's also doing a good job. But then, like, the excuse that he gave when he tried to, because obviously, like I said before, he clearly has a connection with Cameron. He wants to have a connection with Cameron. Whether it's a gay connection, we'll see. I don't know. I'm still questioning whether, because I don't think he's 100% straight. But just the fact that he tried to apologize, because he didn't really try to apologize with nobody else, but he did actively try to apologize to Cameron. But I'm just like, you could have gave a better excuse, dog, where he was just like, I didn't really mean it. They were just words. If you didn't mean it, then you wouldn't have wrote it. But I'm glad that Cameron like didn't just willy-nilly accept his apology and just be like, it's okay. He said, no, look, just like you said, every man for himself, right? So fuck you and your words. He didn't say that part, but that's basically the implication. But speaking of Cameron being able to stand up for himself, we do get to see that, yeah, Cameron is starting to develop more. He's starting to gain more of a spine. He's starting to, what people would say, grow some balls. No, I would say grow a vagina, because that's, like Betty White said, vaginas, that's what really takes a pounding. Balls are weak. You tap a man's balls like that, and I'm on the floor holding myself in pain. So when people are like, oh yeah, you got some balls because you're strong. No, vaginas, literally a whole person comes out of there. Grow a vagina. So yeah, Cameron Cope, he grew a vagina, not even just in standing up to Nash, but also in standing up to Ray. The Cameron that we knew from before would have just let Ray walk all over him. But the fact that him and Ray got into that argument and Cameron didn't back down, he was like, you know what? You want to talk all this stuff about me? What about you? And it's not even like Cameron said anything like crazy or out of pocket. All he said was, you're always trying to be perfect. Not everything always has to be perfect. You're trying to live up to your father's ideals. And the moment something goes wrong, you panic, which is literally the same thing that the old girl said in the other episode. She clocked him instantly, where she's like, oh, you're one of those dudes that always has to be perfect. And so when Ray found out that all the things that he did with regards to Sergeant Knox, it was all based on a lie. Yeah, I get at the end of the day being somewhat upset about that, but Cameron did it to help you. He did it out of loyalty and love for his friend because he knows how much you crash out over just a small amount of failure. So he knows that no matter what, you always have to have some kind of mission. And he even kind of admitted that part of his friendship with Cameron is this idea of him always having a mission. His mission was to always be there for Cameron, always help him when he's either getting bullied or help him when he's failing or whatever. So like there was even a moment where he kind of like went to Cameron, was like, do you need any help putting on your backpack? And Cameron's like, nah, I got it. And Ray, like you saw on his face, he was like, he kind of felt a certain type of way. And even in this episode, improving that he always has to be perfect. He didn't need to make a phone call. He didn't want to necessarily make a phone call. He wanted to win this rifle race because he just wanted to be number one. And so even when he found out that he lost to Ochoa, you saw in his face, he felt a certain type of way because he wasn't number one. He was number two. And eventually he started clapping. But that initial moment, he was like, it almost kind of looked like he's about to have a panic attack again because he came in second place. And while I don't necessarily agree that Cameron punched him, I applaud him for standing up. The Cameron that we saw in other episodes wouldn't have done that. And the fact that he threw a punch at Ray, I was just like, oh, okay, Cameron. Again, I don't agree with the violence, but yeah. And it just goes to show that he's growing up. He's becoming more self-assured. He's becoming more confident, and he's becoming more accepting of himself to a certain extent because he's still not telling them that he's gay. Now, granted, that's also not just for safety reasons, but if he does, he can be kicked out of the military. But in many ways, Ray doesn't really know what to do with that because that removes his particular mission of protecting Cameron, being there for Cameron, being the one that Cameron looks up to and seeks out. Because in that scene, in the moment that they fight it, he even kind of admitted that part of the reason he crashed out and panicked is because it was one of the first time that Cameron was better at Ray than something. And so then it brings into question another tender moment that they had in episode 1 when Ray was just like, you think you need me, but I also need you too, Cameron. And then it makes you question like, oh, so was Ray saying that he needed Cameron because at the end of the day, Cameron is his mission? It gives him something to do as, you know, a protector, more or less, and not just as a friend. Because for Ray to kind of compare Cameron to his mother, that was a low blow, especially considering what Cameron did wasn't really that egregious. Like, that was definitely an uncalled for low blow. Because, like I said, yeah, Cameron did lie, but he lied for you. He lied for the betterment of you. Unlike his mother, where she lies for the betterment of herself. So yeah, Ray definitely still has some learning and growing to do, and learning and accepting the fact that he doesn't always have to be number one. It's okay to be number two. And not much to say about this, but I'm gonna bring it up, you know, just because it happened. Speaking of number two, McKinnon's expecting another child. So, you know, we're getting to learn a little bit more about, you know, the drill sergeant's backstories in life as opposed to them just being the drill sergeant. So we get to see him as a human being. He has a wife and a little, I think it's a little boy at home, and now he's expecting another one. So he ended up leaving a little early because his wife is in labor. So there you go with that. And yeah, I think I brought up and talked about everything in this episode. Granted, it was all out of order, but it was how, you know, in order of where it came into my head. But Ochoa died at the end of the episode. It wasn't expected. And you can see from like Howard dropping his mask as the sergeant, like, you know, that caught everybody off guard. So yeah, it sucks. So yeah, I wonder we're gonna have to talk more about that in episode, what is it? 6? No, this is episode 6. Whatever episode I'm on, 7? No, I'm talking about episode 5. The next one is episode 6. So yeah, that's Boots. Episode 5. So what did you think about this episode of Boots? Let me know all of your thoughts in the comment section below. Again, like, share, comment, interact on this video for the all gay rhythm. Hopefully you even made it to this part of the video for the watch time. Tell your friends, families, and neighbors about my channel to help me to continue to grow. Hopefully check out the other videos on my channel. If you like what you see, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification button so you're alerted every single time I post a new video. And as always, I will catch you guys next time.